Advertising campaigns are largely grounded in data, right from planning to execution and performance analysis. But your audiences don't look at campaigns, they see visuals and creatives, and that essentially form the face of an ad campaign. And much of these visuals have been data dark for the longest time, with meager insights into what creative elements work or don't work. However, quality creative is an effective KPI driver for brands compared to ad media placement, driving top of mind ad recall, brand favorability, and purchase intent. Marketers and designers have mostly depended on intuition to create visuals, which isn't a bad thing, but intuition without data backed insights doesn't yield great results. So today's digital arms race, if I could put it that way, requires marketers to understand how visuals impact campaign performance, especially when large numbers of products or services are advertised to large, diversified cohorts. And with less than 8 seconds to grab the attention of your target audience, brand creatives need to stand out. They need to be crafted using powerful data on past campaigns, competitive intelligence, industry trends, and more. So what seemed like a nice to have a few years ago is now key to ensuring maximum return on advertising spend while staying ahead of the competition. In fact, a McKinsey study found that marketers who unite data and creativity see a 2x revenue growth. So the question that comes to my mind, at least, is how can your brand seamlessly integrate analytics into your ad creative operations? That's a question I'm hoping our guest will be able to shed light on. But first, hello and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast. I'm Vinay Koshi, and our guest is Matt Swalley. Matt, you're the co-founder and chief business officer at OmniKey, an AI marketing platform that generates and optimizes personalized creatives to increase sales across all digital touchpoints. You come into this with well over 13 years of strategic leadership experience from AT&T, where you specialized in things like corporate strategy, business development, and sales team growth. You were part of the corporate strategy team for AT&T and also held leadership positions as chief of staff for AT&T's global business segment, directing sales teams in small business and mid-market enterprise accounts. Matt, I'm curious, you obviously have a wealth of experience, but why make the shift from your roles at TNT into something that would seem to be quite different and start to what it is to today?
Yeah, so I got really passionate about entrepreneurship when I was in corporate strategy. I've always had that passion, actually. So my early days, I was in outside sales. I worked for a small company before AT&T, actually, and I always had that passion for entrepreneurship. And in corporate strategy at AT&T, I was doing a lot of research into what are the next waves of growth, and with that, you're tracking a lot of startups, and the places you can make the most impact is a small company in a technology sector that's about to really emerge. And AI was one of those areas. And this was in 2021. I joined. I was employee number 3 of OmniKey. I joined the CEO, founder Hikari Senju. And I took a leap, and it's been the best decision ever. Everything you do is impactful at a startup, and you really prioritize what's most important and you move on. And it's a constant testing and learning.
Mhm.
And that's really what brought me here. It was excitement towards technology and the ability to really make a difference and turn something into something big.
Brilliant. I'm sure it's been quite a journey, but given your journey to date, what would you say is your personal area of strength?
So my personal area of strength is coming from sales. Everything in a startup starts with sales. So getting knocked down through the 15 years of experience I had before it in outside sales, making calls, leading sales teams, getting really comfortable with rejection, learning that most of understanding in sales is questions, and understanding the problem customers have has really helped me in the startup world. And then also part of corporate strategy where you're analyzing huge data sets of trends, numbers, and then storytelling.
Hmm.
That's exactly what is very impactful at a startup, especially in advertising, because we use data to tell people's stories.
Hmm.
And so that's really my major 2 places is the ability to never give up and keep going and learning from trial and error, and then really taking a question first approach to everything and trying to help others and learn really what the problem is and how can we solve it.
So, in that area of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
So in that area of strength, at a startup, nothing's ever going to be easy. And really, I joined as employee number 3, and it's completely true where you're building an airplane in the air, right? So the earliest customers a lot of times are someone in your network. So the CEO was leading engineering, sales, a whole bunch of the different areas. We had a very lean team. We hadn't raised any capital. We were basically bootstrapped when I joined. And those things of just constantly working through the tenacity, the perseverance of having limited resources and making the most out of every impact is one of those.
Obviously, the rise of technology has transformed the way we operate in the sales, especially in the B2B space. How have you seen that change occur and responded to it in order to be ahead of the curve, so to speak?
Great question, Vinay. We were a first mover in AI, really. Not a 2018, the idea came for this company. The CEO had this vision that data and analytics would help unlock more personalized creative. It's not complete one-to-one personalization yet, but as AI keeps improving through OpenAI and the race of these open source technologies that give you image generation, text generation, and much, much more learnings from computer vision, where we're at today is, especially in B2B, you could have a product or service and 10 different ideal customer profiles. These customer, you could be operating in Australia, different geographies, let's just say Mexico, the US, and Australia, for example. They all have different languages, different cultural areas. And what AI now does, it helps you scale content more efficiently, more segmented and personalized for each of your audiences. So if you're selling to retail and financial institutions, you have a completely different value prop and messaging for those buyers.
Mhm.
And now we're getting to a point where AI is 10% human input on the front, Vinay. What are your goals, objectives? Who's the audience? What can you learn from past purchases or leads generated? AI can do a majority of the mundane middle tasks of a lot of the ideation, image generation, etc. Some video now, and then the last 10% we're in a stage. It's human review, edit, and approve because there's still a lot of challenges as the technology improves. You can name 100 of them. So today there's still a human in the loop, but a lot of the middle areas we move to the end of 2024 and into 2025, those tasks can be completed and more efficient with AI.
Hmm. So, with AI certainly contributing to content ad creation, especially for personalized marketing in the B2B space, you're suggesting that it certainly helps with a lot of the mundane processes, certainly being able to scale up the volume of content that we're able to produce. How does that actually help with ensuring that we're resonating with intended audiences?
So that's one of the beauties of digital advertising. So in my early days of sales, it was all cold calling, door knocking, calling people on the phone, email. You learn from getting out there, handing out business cards, setting up meetings. Today, emails go to spam, calls, people don't like talking on the phone. Even the younger generations right now, they avoid the phone at all costs. 80% of them. It's just such a different. They would love to use instant messaging or text or whatever you can do that's async potentially. And so what digital advertising does, it flips the script. So instead, say you have a new product and service or you're testing an audience. First, you create a digital ad campaign. You plug in your inputs. Let's just go back to you're selling to financial businesses, for example. You plug in, here's our product service. We're selling to financial institutions. This is the buyer. This is the location and language. It's going to generate a bunch of ideas. So AI will enable 50 different ideas of what you could potentially go test. And with digital advertising, what you do is you put a budget behind it. And let's just say you're spending $5,000 to $10,000 a month. You're going to get 75,000 people seeing it if you're advertising on Meta or Link, like some of the different social channels. And what you learn is you can learn what value props, messaging is driving clicks to your website or lead generation, for example. And then with that, you can much quicker identify, is this resonating with the masses or not? If you're driving a bunch of leads, then your next thing is, how do I convert those leads at a higher scale?
Mm.
So instead of picking up the phone and calling 50 people a day, it's going to take you a long time to reach 50,000 people. You're reaching a broad group that could be at different stages of the buying cycle, and they're coming to you. And most of the time, that's a completely different sales methodology where you're trying to learn, now how do I move this customer through the funnel faster?
Mhm.
You're refining your pitch, you're nurturing or your follow-ups in a different manner. And it really does completely evolve sales. You, instead of a huge potential outbound motion, you're doing outbound in a different way many times. And so you could have a much leaner team. And a lot of sales today, if it's sales led, you could be meeting with 5 to 10 customers in a day all through Zoom. And a lot of it could be inbound leads from
Mm.
digital marketing. And then you're testing and learning constantly.
That's an interesting concept there. Would you say that traditional outbound sales is dead?
No, I just don't. I think many attributes of it are less effective than they were 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And you have to use a complementary approach. A lot of people were very, in B2B especially, were very anti-digital in many cases. Like, I don't want to spend money unless I see a guaranteed benefit.
Mhm.
But we now, for the last 3 years, I've been part of it, and in longer, we've been running ads consistently through the whole time. And it's a long game. It's constantly learning your messaging, what's resonating with the market, listening to your customers, adding that into your advertising campaigns, using organic social as well. So there's two different types of advertising, what we'll call it. There's a number, but one is paid.
Mhm.
That's where you're paying the platforms to distribute to brand new people who have never seen something. And the other is organic. Who have you already connected with? Who is following your company? And it's a complementary approach really today of using these other things. Even podcasts is one of them, because your customers, if you're connected with them, are going to start to see all your content.
Mm.
That's really the evolution. And we've seen great success where we've met with, through a period of after Gen AI got really exciting, we were meeting with 500 customers a month with a handful of people. And then we continually, what
Mm.
you change is you start screening people that are coming to you more and more because you have limited resources and time. So you start figuring out, how can I update my landing page so that we are only meeting with our ideal customers we can sell to today, and we're filtering out the ones that potentially are not a good fit and sending them to a place that's different. And that's the constant learning, and that's the big change.
I'm hearing you correctly. You're suggesting that data certainly needs to come more to the fore in today's sales process. Certainly, data needs to play a key pivotal role, but that you're also building a sales funnel as you get more and more data in order to streamline the process and handle the volume that you're suggesting. Two questions come to mind. One, what would you suggest for people who are perhaps more in the startup phase? If traditional outbound methodology isn't quite as effective as it is today, where do they start if they don't have the budgets to invest in large scale campaigns? That's one. And the other is, where's a good place to start, assuming that you have a good base of customers to advertise to, etc., in order to start building in efficiencies into the process?
As an early stage startup, a couple of the challenges, and we saw this a couple of times, is
Mhm.
email still is, in phone calls and everything, is still a channel. It's just, if you're sending 100 emails, you're going to get maybe a handful of responses,
Mhm.
if that. And especially if you're sending out too many emails, you'll start to be filtered out as a spam sender. Unless you're sending like more individual, if you start autonomizing or using like the reply automated sequences and stuff, that is a challenge to try to figure out the right method of how you set up your technology, security, domains, and everything that keeps you away from that bad area right there. So that's one complication, but you want to be using that channel. And as an early stage, some of the easiest sales is starting down market, small business, and then moving up market as you continue to find product market fit. The second part of that is it's worth it to put a little budget behind ads because one, it builds brand awareness. If you're in the game for a long sale, it could take someone 5 to 7 times of seeing your company. So say you do make that connection through email. Now you have this CRM full of customers that you've met with. One is, of course, you're following up every 3 to 6 months by email. But you also can target those with ads. So as you have new product releases, et cetera, all of a sudden they're going to start to see your brand over and over again as you grow. And they actually are going to come back to you. Because some of our best sales now have taken a year. They originally came to us from digital. And then we followed up with email. And then guess what? They saw another ad a year later. And then they're scheduling another demo. So that's today's nurturing. It's people don't always like being just emailed. They like to come to you after they realize it's a good fit now. And sales, another big evolution in sales with how technology is evolving is they want to see value more upfront. Before you could spend 3 calls on discovery, the landscape today is you have a very short period of time to have the customer's attention for discovery, and you have to have it really in a fine-tuned manner of building rapport, asking questions, and then sharing a little bit about your product that's more individualized and personalized for that customer, because you will quickly lose, like the sales pendulum as in B2B, it can swing really fast. Someone can be really hot and then it will swing and you'll never hear from them again.
Have you found discovery calls to be the best way to get enough data to personalize your approach to clients? Or would you suggest alternatives?
Discovery is the most important element of it. So the more you can get discovery with, as sales get larger, there's more and more discovery. If you're selling to enterprise, it's going to take speaking with over five stakeholders, understanding different business units problems.
Yeah.
At the small business scale though, and you're selling a service, let's just say a technology solution or a service that's under $5,000 a month, let's just say under $3,000 a month, you have about 15 minutes of discovery to ask questions. And then you need to give them how your product is going to help solve their needs. And then usually you'll have a second or third call after that, but you have about 15 minutes of discovery on a 30-minute call or 50% of the call. That would be about where I say, and you better use it to ask the right questions.
Have you found, and this is just going off other things I've noticed with other companies and certainly my own experiences, but has perhaps getting people to take an assessment or enter into a scorecard of some sort been something that you've used in the past?
Assessments could be great if you get the customers or prospects to fill them out. That's one challenge. How many people will take that time to fill it out before? Most of the time, if you're meeting with lots of vendors, even if you're the buyer, for example, flip it takes a while to go fill all that information you're asked to do before a pre-call. So about 20% of the time you're filling it out. The other time they're trying to grab it at the very beginning of a meeting.
Okay, certainly.
And then one other thing, Vinay, that you want to be careful of is you don't want to make it too complicated. If it's a good lead, you don't want to make it too complicated to be able to talk to someone.
Makes a lot of sense. So you're certainly advocating for a mindset shift within an organization. I wonder if there's also perhaps a bit of a heart shift required in order to support this data-driven sales approach that you're advocating for. Could you speak to perhaps your own experiences with that in terms of being able to align and build the support required to ensure that this new approach is given all the, not just support, but ongoing metrics and other things that are required to ensure it's effective and efficient?
Sure. So if it's your first time doing it, it's going to be much, much harder than if you've done it before.
Mhm.
Because if I go back to the very early days, I knew certain elements of the business, but this was my first time really understanding digital marketing and lead generation from a digital standpoint.
Mhm.
And that's what we sell. So now I'm very knowledgeable at it today. I understood the outbound motion, the sales process, discovery process, moving sales through the whole process.
Mhm.
So just know that very early days, you could potentially hire someone to help train you on it,
Mhm.
or you're just going to have to learn it. The best case scenario as an early stage startup is with the AI tools today, you just need to put a small budget behind it and start testing. Put some ads together yourself if you want to, but learn how it works. Test one channel at a time. Typically, Meta or one of them is still the easiest to go test at your
Mhm.
early days. Depending on the product, then you could go Meta or Google, but test one, learn it, because that will drive value and understanding for your future dates. If you've done it before, you're going to look at it a lot differently.
Mhm.
You're going to start noticing right away, what are the challenges? Who are my customers? How do I start to screen some of the issues you could have? Like, for example, eliminate emails that aren't a Gmail, because there's challenges with marketing as well where you get a bunch of leads that aren't qualified, or you don't know how they even got to you. So the second time, you already know how to turn those things off very quickly. And so you're moving much, much, much faster. But the best way is roll up your sleeves, put a small budget behind it that you can afford, and learn it, because it's going to be one of the most critical components. And one other thing to note, Vinay, is the platforms are continually making it easier actually to distribute creative. Creative is now the major lever
Mhm.
for distribution. And the way they're all what we call walled gardens, and they keep personal information locked up. So Vinay, they know what you're liking. Each of the platforms individually knows what you're looking at, what you like within their platforms, and they're going to show you a bunch of content or companies similar to what you've looked at. But they're not going to give the company that's marketing, they're not going to give them your name. So today, the platforms require a whole bunch of different creative, and then some of the best performing ones are when you just allow the platforms to distribute to what they believe is most effective. You set a goal, you say send it, upload a bunch of creatives that are for a specific audience, and then you let the platforms decide how to distribute. Those can be just as effective as targeting, but you want to do both, have a very targeted approach, but then also be doing that. And that requires a lot of content.
There's been a trend to invest in creatives that are eye catching, that really pop, etc. On the flip side, I've heard of people who take some very ordinary images or photos or video of themselves and are able to break through the noise, so to speak, and resonate with their customers. How do you suggest we balance the two?
So that's one of the biggest challenges of what they call multivariate creative testing. You need
Mhm.
to test images, short form video, long form videos. You need to test user generated content, stuff like you just mentioned, where you're filming yourself, CEO or anyone talking about what they do, or customer testimonials. You want to try to test multiple angles. And the key is, once you see something successful, is you make a bunch of iterations of that same one. So if you have a great video, Vinay, say you record yourself and you're getting a bunch of distribution and leads coming in from it, you're going to want to make that video for other videos that have minor tweaks, different colors, different super cuts of that. And then that is what maximizes performance today in ads.
Mm.
So identify what's a winning asset and then tweak it with a bunch of different versions.
Makes a lot of sense. Just out of curiosity, does OmniKey allow for video ad creation as well, or is it just purely images at this stage?
So we do
Oh,
videos.
okay.
So our software tool today does primarily images,
Mhm.
and it lets you create potentially hundreds or thousands of ads with images. We'll have video overlay in that product second quarter
Mhm.
of this year, but we've been doing video for years as a service add-on. So we're doing every type of creative that you're talking about. We do user generated content. We
Mhm.
take the production assets, and one thing that AI is enabling with production assets, you could have a bunch of internal production assets. AI can help you cut that into a bunch of small videos to go test, add on the
Hmm.
transcriptions and everything. But we do all that. So with multivariate creative testing, you have to be able to offer all of them. But our technology self-service product is primarily images today, and we'll have video here this quarter.
Brilliant. And just out of curiosity, as we were speaking about sales, what's your take between sales-led growth as opposed to product-led growth strategies in order to achieve predictable revenue growth?
Okay, so our company has been primarily sales led, which the beauty of sales led is you get to listen to customers. Just like I said, that discovery call, you'll have hundreds of meetings, thousands of meetings where you get 15 minutes or longer of hearing the customer's problem over and over again. And you can help determine, is this problem consistent? Is there a large addressable market for it? Can we solve it? And then get focused. I love sales led growth with a higher revenue product or service. Sales led is a great entry point.
Mhm.
And then it's easier, I think, as your product evolves to also adapt a product led area.
Mhm.
And then the other issue is with product led growth is if you're running ads, sometimes with a low cost service that's product led, ads can be more of a challenge because you have to keep a certain level of return on ad spend that's high enough to cover your costs, cover your revenue, how much you're making per thing. It can be more challenging.
Mhm.
But there's benefits to both depending on where your product is. And now I actually heard someone define this past month. The ideal place to be is right in the middle, where you have a combination of sales led and product led. And I was like, oh, that's genius.
So, as you're talking, I'm thinking, would podcasts actually be that good middle ground, so to speak, given that there is the opportunity to speak with customers or potential customers around topics that are near and dear to their heart, to build that organic rapport, knowing trust, as many people put it, repurpose all of that content to form ads that you could test out and yet and so use that as the engine to fuel the kind of campaigns that we were talking about earlier.
Any type of public relations, blogs, content is great to repurpose. And also, that's another way where you get really good at telling what your company does is by joining podcasts, or even better with you hosting podcasts. You get to meet a
Hmm.
lot of great people, hear different perspectives on what they're building, challenges they're facing. But podcasts are amazing. I would call it an amazing nurturing avenue where you can continue to repurpose it. You can run it as ads, but you can also, it's organic. So once you have those connections with people, they get to continually see updates through the podcasts that you're developing and publishing those on across all the different podcast platforms, and then also on your LinkedIn and other avenues. But podcasts are a great way, and I've loved it from a nurturing standpoint. Joining podcasts, yeah.
So, do you run, or does OmniKey run their own podcast, or are you pretty much podcast guesting at this stage?
We plan to at some point, but we've joined a lot of podcasts at this
Mhm.
point. But we don't have a podcast today.
Okay. Brilliant. Given this area of sales incorporating data and certainly increasingly AI in order to scale our efforts and become more efficient, would you say that there's perhaps an area or two that you find doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
Areas not talked about with AI.
Yeah, or at least not very much.
The challenge is that the biggest challenge with AI, it can be intimidating for people not following it. I'm in the very middle of it. We have a nice size AI and engineering team. And a lot of times I feel like it's hard to keep up with.
Mhm.
That so the people that are new to AI, it's changing every single week. Every week there's a new technology breakthrough that could change the world. And a lot of them, it's hard to tell, is this actually solving a business problem, or is this just a cool little use case and I don't know how to use it? what I can say is I don't really have one that's not being talked about. But what I will say for people new to AI, the best way to learn is to go subscribe to some of the newsletters. I have a handful I really Ben's Bites is one of my favorites, where they send you 10 new technologies or softwares that are out there. And a lot of them are free to use at the beginning. Like you mentioned, they're going for product led growth or usage. And so go test a handful of those, create a fake business if you don't want to use your own business and test them and learn what the capabilities are. And then the second thing is I really like X or Twitter for learning is if you start to follow a lot of the leaders in the space, they're all sharing knowledge every single day. But then it's like a rapid fire of your brain overload of, oh my gosh, this came out today. What should I focus on?
Right. Yes, and that can be pretty overwhelming in itself, even if you're using something like LinkedIn as well. So you raise a few interesting points, and I'm keen to get your perspective, certainly from an AI standpoint, as to how you approach things like incorporating feedback loops, perhaps from your sales calls and demos, to inform product development and marketing strategies in a sales-led growth model.
Yeah, so this is a fun process. We record everything in our customer relationship management software. And in an early stage startup, you are very close to product and engineering and sales. Like it's a constant everyday feedback loop. And we track a voice of the customer tracker, for example, where we're recording every single request and problem that could be exciting for us to bring onto our platform. So we've just developed this process called Voice of the Customer where really every strategic thing goes in there. And then we use AI tools also on the customer success side mainly because a lot of people on the sales side don't necessarily want to be recorded. But we have a lot of the actual customer conversations recorded through an AI tool that summarizes everything and then actually pulls that out for you that gets provided to product.
Recording, how do you actually filter through it? Because that can be quite a large amount of information to manually get through. How do you filter through it to surface the ones that have the biggest impact or should get the most priority?
Well, the one benefit of sales led growth is like we determine myself and the other two people that are doing primarily most of the front end selling pre-sales motion. We determine what's really important and we make sure they review that. And a lot of times when I listen, I like to type. So even if I had an AI recorder, what helps me learn is typing. So I have this massive screen and I'm typing over on the right side of it through the conversations. As for the AI tools that record, a lot of times that is still a manual process where we go take it from the AI recording and go add it to the voice of the customer.
Okay.
Or, yeah, which I'm sure there's some better processes out there, but this works for us at this stage.
Okay, certainly. And in terms of those who are going driven marketing is perhaps worth looking into, what would be your advice in terms of budget considerations?
So to get enough impressions that you can get learnings, we recommend a minimum of $5,000 a month. Now, for an early stage startup, you could go down to $1,000 a month. This would be very entry level and that would get you enough to start learning. But if you're trying to scale your growth and you need to be spending over probably $5,000 or more.
Right.
But under 1,000, you're not going to get very much out. You're not going to get enough people seeing it a month
Certainly.
in ad spend.
Siloed data can often be an issue in some organizations, if not most organizations. It's certainly one thing to run ads and build out the data set that sales can use. How do you handle conversations perhaps with other teams within an organization in order to ensure that you're getting all the required data to better inform your sales processes, be it from accounting or customer success and marketing, etc.?
Yeah, we're using you're talking about internally. How do we keep out
Yeah,
all the or
correct.
Okay, so one benefit of our tool is we have a tool called Analyze within our thing that provides a bunch of marketing insights.
Mhm.
So our team's all looking at that every day. Now, as our company's grown, we have implemented a number of different systems, which is becomes challenging. I mean, we have the CRM on the sales side. We're using Pendo to help us track like usage, and we're using HubSpot to help with some of the other details on follow up and where the data going directly into your CRM after it's submitted. And we're also using Slack in some cases to notify us of leads. So that becomes part of the challenge as your company grows and different tools serve different meanings
Mhm.
of everyone being able to view the data.
Okay. It's a challenge, but you're saying that within the organization, the data is available. Is that correct?
Yes, the data is available, and we have implemented tooling for almost every element of it today.
Mhm.
And the specific teams all have access. Like I have access to everything, so I can go look at these different points and find it.
Mhm.
And then it's really the business leader's job to help synthesize the most important things and share it with the other teams.
Okay. And with the sales led approach, what sort of metrics are you using to ensure that your endeavors are successful?
Yeah. So from sales led, it is one is customer acquisition cost. That's for how much does it cost for us to get a lead? What percentage of those convert? Lifetime value is the third major one. Like how much revenue do they have monthly? Do they convert to an annual contract? What's the lifetime value? Those all go into it when you're allocating your marketing spend. And ours goes towards a number of different things: ads today, events. As your company grows, all these other elements become more and more valuable. In the early stages, we devoted less to those.
Hmm.
But customer acquisition costs, lifetime value are two of the major ones we focus on.
Right. Okay. This has been very interesting. How would you see the incorporation of things like evolving as you look to the future in order to not just scale, but your not just scale your sales efforts, but to ensure that there is predictable revenue growth?
Yeah, the key is that every company needs to be using AI because it's clearly the number one thing right now that
Mm.
every marketing, actually, according to Gartner, 85% of companies will be implementing AI by the end of next year into the marketing framework. And the future is going to be everyone requires a more personalized experience as the technology. Personalization is such a
Mm.
buzzword. But a couple years from now, you will be getting a very personalized experience where at some point it's going to start to completely predict what you want to see, and it's going to start to tailor the messaging directly to what you want to see. And that's where we're headed. It's getting more and more there where you need to have more personalized, more micro segmented creative towards and messaging towards each of your different customer types.
Mm. Brilliant. Matt,
Yeah.
this has been terrific. Is there perhaps something I should have asked but haven't as yet? I know we've covered a fair bit of ground, but is there something I perhaps haven't covered as yet in this whole area of taking a sales led approach to revenue growth?
If any of the listeners are interested, you can find OmniKey at www.omnikey.com, and you can schedule a demo, or you could reach out to me directly at matt@omnikey.com if you're interested in learning more.
Okay. And if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
That there's a hard line between being too risk adverse and avoiding AI and not testing it. Every company and leader out there needs to be focused and testing at a small scale if you're scared of it, because it's going to be something that's unavoidable. It's going to help you become more efficient.
Something. LinkedIn, is that your favorite social handle?
LinkedIn's
And
my
Twitter?
favorite.
Okay.
And
We'll,
Twitter.
we'll include links to that in the show notes. Matt, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for doing this.
Vinay, thank you so much for having me today.